Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on From the South. I'm Cody Weddle for Telesur English. To begin, the Colombian government and the FARC rebels reached yet another major agreement over the weekend. Both parties agreed to search for those who have gone missing during the country's more than 50-year-old civil war. Now, the FARC has made the commitment to turn over information on the location and identification of the remains of people who died in its custody. Both the rebel group and the government will give information to the International Committee of the Red Cross about the missing so that the charity can help design search plans. Now, this accord resolves yet another outstanding issue for the final peace agreement, which both parties agreed to sign before March 23rd next year.
Today, an agreement was reached on a number of immediate, confidence-building measures that consist of the search, location, identification, and dignified handover of people gone missing in the context of the armed conflict. These measures will be implemented immediately. The families of the people that were given up or disappeared have the right to clean the wounds by locating the remains, and they have the right to know what happened.
And precisely last Friday, the city of Medellin commemorated the 13th anniversary of the so-called Operación Orión, when the government of Álvaro Uribe tried to recapture a sector of the city disputed by right-wing paramilitaries and popular militias. Now, according to the relatives, 272 people were killed and 98 are still missing. In a performance to mark the anniversary, protesters buried themselves up to
buried in the La Escombrera dump. Today we're here asking that they are exhumed and delivered with dignity to each of their families.
Colombia's second guerrilla organization, the ELN, has said it also wants its peace talks with the government to move into a new phase. Instead of the secret negotiations undertaken so far, the ELN's top leader, Pablo Beltrán, announced he wants the talks to become public.
In all these topics, like the democratization of the country, the changes needed, the situation of the victims, and the end of the conflict, we need the population as a whole to participate and take the lead. So we are ready to move a phase of open, public negotiations.
And for more now on the advances of the peace process, we're going to turn to our correspondent in Colombia, in Bogota, Natalia Margarita. Natalia, are you there?
Yeah, hi, Cody.
Hey,
Bolivia TV.
To search for the missing is a huge step in this peace process. Since, sort of depending on the source we're talking to here, we're talking about the relatives of between 45,000 or nearly 100,000 still searching for their loved ones. How significant is this agreement?
Regarding the number, those numbers that you mentioned are not necessarily contradictory. So when we talk about over 100,000, here we're talking about the people that have been reported missing here in Colombia. Now, the 45,000 correspond to the people that have gone missing within the armed conflict, right? So we're talking about 45,000 that have been forcibly disappeared in the wake of Colombia's armed conflict. Now, this number, however, implies what might be a great or significant under-recorded number, because it's a number that is just counting the people that have been forcibly disappeared since 1985. So we're talking about the last 30 years and not the 50 years of Colombia's armed conflict. This announcement that you were mentioning, Cody, represents, of course, a great step towards the truth. That is what most of the victims here in Colombia have been demanding in the wake of the current peace process. Those relatives of those 45,000 or around 45,000 people that have disappeared, have been forcibly disappeared, have been demanding not just that the bodies of their beloved ones are located and identified, but also to know exactly what happened, who took away those relatives, and what exactly happened, where the bodies were left, and why they were disappeared. So to start seeking for these people implies for the victims and the relatives of those who have disappeared a great step towards the truth, which it's a pressing issue and has always been a pressing issue since this peace process began back in 2012, Cody.
And Natalia, we talk a lot about the FARC, and it can be easy to forget that other armed groups exist there in Venezuela that also hope to reach a peace agreement. Now, recently, the National Liberation Army, ELN, has asked to participate more directly in peace talks. Explain to us, if you will, who are the ELN and how do they fit into this process of peace in Colombia?
When we talk about the ELN, we're talking about the second largest guerrilla in Colombia. It's important to clarify that the ELN and the government have been holding the so-called exploratory dialogues. What this means that they are not officially under negotiations yet, but they have been approaching, both sides have been approaching each other to define an agenda. And this, what we call here in Colombia, this exploratory period also happened in the case of the FARC, because before they officially start this current peace process. The FARC and the government, before 2012, when the negotiations officially started, they were also holding for also around 2 years these exploratory dialogues. The main outcome expected from these exploratory dialogues or exploratory period, it's an agenda, a clear agenda that contains or is expected to contain the points that specifically will be eventually negotiated in an official negotiation table.
And we know you'll continue to keep us posted. Natalia Margarita reporting from Bogota. Natalia, thanks.
Back to you, Cody.
Also in Colombia now, a small plane crashed in Bogota, killing 5 people and injuring 6. Now, former President Andrés Pastrana had planned to be on that plane to fly to a campaign event, but he actually didn't board. No details were given as to why exactly he did not board that aircraft. The small plane crashed into a bakery and set it on fire, causing an explosion. Aviation officials say the incident occurred minutes after the plane took off from the city's international airport. The cause of the accident is still unknown. As the October 25th general elections in Argentina approach, the ruling Progressive Front for Victory Party's presidential candidate, Daniel Scioli, said that negotiating vulture funds with the vulture funds is not on his agenda. Now, Scioli leads in the polls, but if not clear if he will win enough, it's not clear if he will win enough votes to avoid a runoff election on November 22nd. The popular governor of Buenos Aires, the Buenos Aires province, explained that his campaign was designed to aid the most vulnerable people in the country.
Economic independence is social and economic debt reduction like our motherland has. It's the result of a political strategy that gives us freedom and unsurpassable possibilities to successfully reach this project's next chapter, which is the development.
Macri appealed to the Peronist vote at their rallies on Peronist Loyalty Day.
We have 5.5 days before the campaigns close. My God, the time has come. The time has come for this healthy rebellion, which has led us up to this point, to tell Argentina and the world, let's stand up. We will build the Argentina we dream of, all together.
Argentina has been acknowledged worldwide for its recent championing of human rights policy and imprisoning many who have committed crimes against humanity. But in the lead up to the presidential elections, candidates have sharply differed their views on that subject.
With over 500 criminals against humanity now behind bars in ordinary jail cells and almost 120 men and women that have recuperated their identities after they were stolen by the military from their biological families when they were infants, the ruling Front for Victory government have honoured human rights policy like no other before it. Human rights activists say that they are the only political option that will continue investigating the horrors of the dictatorship.
The Front for Victory has demonstrated through its actions that it is totally in accordance with this national project, which includes memory, one of the pillars of our struggle, memory, truth and justice.
The Argentine Popular Movement argues that the two representatives of the neoliberal bloc in Argentina, Mauricio Macri of the Cambiemos coalition and Sergio Massa of UNA, want to put an end to the human rights policies of the past 12 years.
For Macri, all the work done over the past 12 years is a scam. Our lives, our history, the years in which our identity was stolen, all the violence we were forced to go through are all a scam. He reduced it to that. Saying that the human rights struggle is a scam gives him the platform to confront us and say that this is a thing of the past.
The party that holds a majority in the Cambiemos coalition, the right-wing Pro Party, abstained earlier this month when voting on a draft submitted by the Front for Victory to create a joint commission to investigate the complicity of the civilian corporate sector with 1970s state terrorism.
The Pro Party has in its team of economic advisors a man called Carlos Melconian. The fact that this man, who is responsible for nationalizing and essentially transferring to all the Argentine people the debt incurred by the civil-military dictatorship, and who today gives out advice on how our government should run the economy, our government which has to pick up the country from such a huge debt, is something I find a joke and extremely violent.
As for the other pro-neoliberal candidate, Sergio Massa, human rights organisations see his proposal to use the armed forces in the fight against drug trafficking as a very dangerous threat to human rights and accuse him of seeking to criminalise poverty. Leo Politico, Telesur, Buenos Aires.
At least 3 days have gone by since Mexican authorities claim to have cornered the Sinaloa cartel leader, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, who once again evaded detention. Now, the government says El Chapo was injured as he escaped, but they have so far failed to explain how they got close enough to observe he was injured without capturing him or any of his associates. At least 8 people have been injured in an explosion at a commercial site in Brazil's Rio de Janeiro. The blast destroyed 11 apartments and damaged at least 40 buildings. The 8 survivors were rescued from the debris. It's believed the blast may have been caused by a gas buildup at one of the restaurants in the area. More tragic deaths in Israel as violence between Palestinians and Israelis continues. Now an asylum seeker has been found killed. We'll have those details when we come back. Among continents and nations. Nations are divided by borders and interests. These interests divide the news. We examine the impact of these divisions on people and power. This is Imaginary Lines. Watch it on telesurtv.net/English. Telesur, wherever the news, you'll be there. A world infinitely connected. Millions of people instantaneously interacting. Experiences relayed in 144 characters. Millions of lives in every corner of the planet. They're not tweets, they're stories. Watch it on telesurtv.net/English. Telesur, wherever the news, you'll be there. Rod stars G1 and Claudia de la Cruz are Rebel Diaz, hip-hop activists positioned within a history of political resistance through music. And you don't stop. They invite young people to express themselves about their social struggles. And you don't stop. Watch it on telesurtv.net/English. Telesur, wherever the news, you'll be there. Russian bombs have successfully attacked 49 terrorist targets, and according to Russia's defense military, the attacks had Daesh fighters fleeing. A total of 33 aircrafts were dispatched over a 24-hour period there. 2 command headquarters, 3 arms depot, and 2 underground bunkers were also bombed. Russian aircraft attacked 32 firing positions in mountainous areas, 9 fortified positions, and a workshop producing missile launchers and rockets for the Islamic State group or Daesh. Moving on now, over 26 million Canadians are eligible to vote in general elections this Monday. Now, the turnout is expected to be higher than usual after an intense and close campaign. To speak about that, we have on the line now Pablo Godoy, who is a labor unionist there from Toronto. Hello, Pablo. Thanks for joining us. Now, current Prime Minister there, Stephen Harper, he's a conservative. He's been in office since 2006, and he's running for a 4th mandate. He could be the first Canadian Prime Minister to achieve that since 1908. What, in your opinion, have been some key points of his first 4 terms in office?
Well, thank you for having me. I think there's quite a few interesting points, I guess, it might be the best word to use when it comes to his time in office. What we've seen is the increasing of surveillance state through the implementation of some laws like Bill C-51 that are kind of question our safety, our security, our privacy as citizens. We've recently seen the signing of a new trade agreement, the TPP, which the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which Canadians at this moment have very little information about and are quite curiously awaiting details, as we've heard some information, but not all of it. In the past couple of years, he's also prorogued government when there was important debates to be had. Over his 9 years, 10 years of office, there's been quite a downturn in Canadian economy in terms of unemployment rates, in terms of employment rates. We know that we've gone through a global recession, one that we're still not necessarily quite out of. When we look at, our gross domestic product, when we look at how much families are earning, when we look at who's benefiting from Stephen Harper in power. So, I mean, his time in power has been plagued with controversy, with scandal as well. And I believe right now there's a lot of fear-mongering that the Conservatives are using to rally, I guess, their support and to divide the citizenry, right? I mean, they're using a lot of conversation around Islamophobia to really, I guess you could say, instill fear in people, in the masses. And that's kind of been his status quo in the approach of the Harper Conservatives in the last 10 years.
Well, it sounds like you're not much of a Stephen Harper supporter, so let's talk about sort of the main opposition there. So this has surprised some people. They're starting to lead in the polls, the Liberal Party. We have Justin Trudeau. He is a son of former Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau at the front of the party there. What is the Liberal Party putting forward? What are their ideas?
Well, the Liberal Party has put forward some proposals to deal with repealing or turning back the clock in terms of old age security, the ability to retire for, I guess, people that are at retiring age. I guess I didn't mention, but one of the changes as well to that was that you have to, in Canada, you have to now wait till be 67 to get a top-up of your pension eligibility through old age security. The Liberals are proposing to turn that back. They're also with the Syrian crisis, or what's termed or deemed to be the Syrian crisis here in Canada, is they're proposing to take in 25 Syrian refugees. But some interesting information is that the Liberals don't necessarily have that different of a track record when you look at the laws that they've supported along the way, including, being supporters of Bill C-51, which is often referred to as a terrorist bill, but really does more to damage our security and privacy, as well as supporting Bill C-24, which actually allows the state to actually repeal citizenship for refugees, which is problematic if nothing else in terms of law. In terms of, Indigenous rights, they've claimed that they'll be supporting the Reconciliation Act and try to invest in Indigenous communities. That remains to be seen in terms of whether or not it's doable or something that's more than a campaign promise. But there is slight difference, I would say, in terms of what the Liberals are proposing.
Well, it appears that they could win the most seats there. We will wait and see. Pablo Godoy, thanks so much for joining us for your insight as we wait for the results there in Canada. Back to another story we were talking about right before we talked about Canada. Russian bombs have successfully attacked 49 terrorist targets, and according to Russia's defense military, the attacks had Daesh fighters fleeing. Here's some video we didn't show you earlier. As I was saying, a total of 33 aircrafts were dispatched over a 24-hour period. 2 command headquarters, 3 arms depots, and 2 underground bunkers were also bombed. Russian aircraft attacked 32 firing positions in mountainous areas, 9 fortified battlefield positions, and a workshop producing missile launchers and rockets for the Islamic State group, or Daesh. Although the U.S.-led coalition has been carrying out its own airstrikes against Daesh, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said they want to avoid the total destruction of Syria and is planning to meet with various leaders soon to seek an end to the conflict.
I'll be coming back in a few days, and I will meet with leaders from Russia, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan to work through real and tangible options that could perhaps reignite a political process and bring about a political transition in Syria, a transition to a government that responds not to a dictator's whims, but to the desperate needs and wishes of the people of Syria.
Iraqi forces were able to advance on Sunday on 3 fronts against the Islamic State group in and around Bahiji. Now, according to Iraqi officers, they were able to close in on them on the Ramadi and Hawija areas. The advance comes after Iraqi security and allied paramilitary forces last week launched a broad offensive in the Bahiji area, which is about 120 miles north of Baghdad. An asylum seeker from Eritrea who was shot by an Israeli security guard, then badly beaten by a mob on Sunday night, has succumbed to his injuries and died. Now, the attack came after an armed Palestinian man killed an Israeli soldier and wounded 10 more at a bus station in the city of Beersheba. Haftan Samum was shot after being incorrectly thought to be an accomplice of that attacker, who was killed on the site as well. A total of 44 Palestinians have been killed so far this month, while 8 Israelis have been killed.
The problem is that the Israeli deliberate government army violence has been allowed to continue along with settler terrorism, and then you take out a few Palestinian responses and you say condemn those. I would like to see a total condemnation of the violence. We have always condemned violence. We've always said it has to be a non-violent solution.
And in yet another case of mistaken identity, a Jewish man who was recently stabbed by a fellow Jew after being mistaken for an Arab man blames both Prime Minister Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu, and President Abbas for the current state of violence.
Netanyahu is looking for somebody to blame. He should look into himself and try to realize where his mistakes are stemming from. The biggest blame is on him and from the other side. Each party is trying to push the blame onto the other side, and neither succeeds. And those who are in the middle of this are doomed, both peoples.
Egypt kicked off its long-awaited parliamentary elections, but there was low voter turnout in the first round. The elections were called by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and are divided in 2 rounds. The first one began Sunday and will continue through this Monday. The runoffs in constituencies where no clear winner has emerged will take place November 22nd and 23rd. Now, analysts say that with most of Sisi's opponents in jail, the new parliament will unlikely change, but some voters have expressed hope for change.
We've come because we've seen earlier elections that were not good, and this is the first time in Egypt that we have a real election, and everyone should be convinced by it.
Switzerland has swung further to the political right with a surge in support for the ultra-conservative Swiss People's Party in its national elections. SVP won almost 30% of the vote, increasing their presence in the 200-seat parliament to 65. The left-wing Social Democratic Party held its vote steady at 19%. The results reflect the growing anti-immigrant sentiment there, but some people are not happy with those results.
I would rather live in a country of solidarity and humanism than in a repressive and restrictive country.
The German Football Federation has slammed allegations of bribery during the bidding process for the 2006 FIFA World Cup. The organization said a report that appeared in a magazine on Friday claiming that a slush fund had been used to buy votes for the German bid in 2000 was baseless. Now, according to the Der Spiegel magazine, a total close to $6 million had been established by Germany's World Cup bidding committee, intended to secure votes in their favor.
The 2006 World Cup was a summer fairy tale, and it is a summer fairy tale. The summer fairy tale is not destroyed because I am saying here again, there were no slush funds, there was no vote purchase. We entered the competition through legal means, and we won it through legal means in Zurich on July 6, 2000. For us, for Germany, for German soccer.
Talking about Halloween now, it's approaching in the countries that celebrate it. If you happen to celebrate Halloween in Mexico, I guess some people celebrate there, then dressing up as the fugitive El Chapo or Donald Trump seems to be a must. El Chapo's name, his real prisoner number, along with the phrase, "It was not a maximum security jail," can be found at the back of the costume. Although the fugitive's costume is expected to be quite popular, vendors expect the Donald Trump costumes to do just as well. Do they celebrate Halloween in Mexico? I thought they celebrated more Day of the Dead. Who knows? Plenty more on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. Have a great day.